Good evening, happy Friday, and welcome to Last Call, where the martinis flow and the fandom grows. Although the fandom grows at a much slower pace than the martinis flow. But that's a story for another time. Anyway, this may be the last week hosting the show with Netter pulling double duty, as Aged Boomer should be returning this week. In fact, he may be back as early as Geeky Geezers on Sunday. Let's hope. But until then, the show goes on, and tonight we welcome back community regular Matthew Flynn, the Gladiator of Kaon. He's coming to us from the wee hours of Saturday morning on the other side of the pond, and we appreciate him for it. So let's not keep him waiting any longer than necessary. Top off your glasses and strap in. Here we go. Hello, happy Friday. How's everyone doing tonight? Good to see y'all. Real quick, let me bring in my wingwoman, Netter of Netter's Network. My lovely and talented, how are you doing tonight and what you sipping on?
I'm doing just great, and I am sipping on my Lipton green tea citrus.
Good. I am having a coconut martini because you printed out a recipe for me and I had to try it. And it's kind of yummy. I'm actually on my second one. It's pretty good. But as I said, let's not keep them waiting long. Let's bring in community regular Gladiator of Kaon, Matthew Flynn. How are you doing, my friend? And what you sipping on?
Well, I'm not currently sipping on anything, but I did have a cup of tea earlier. I definitely should have sorted something out earlier because I even have like these video game placemats like, on my desk right here that I can use.
You have all the accoutrement for a drink, so you ought to get one. I get that. So real quick, let me back up and say hi to the chat. I see David Pensack was first. He says, well, looky there. I'm the first one here. Guess I'll turn on the lights and prep the bar. Grab your drinks and get ready for Friday night. Last call. I said to him, thanks for the help. I super appreciate it. Check that vanilla vodka for me, would you? I think I left the lid off. I'm actually not joking about that because I needed vanilla vodka for this. And of course, Deleted Scenes is here. How you doing, my friend? He's there dropping the links because he's awesome that way. And he's also saying, don't forget to sub to our special guest bartender, Matthew Flynn, Gladiator of Kaon. Links in the description, but of course, Deleted Scenes is dropping that as well. And I also have a playlist up of all my guest appearances, and some of those guest appearances are on his channel, so go check that out.
I thought you were going to say, don't forget to tip your waiters.
And don't forget to tip your waitress, but if you do, make sure you help her back up again. Let's see, who else we got here? Oh, Evelyn Hampton, how you doing? Good evening. Good to see you. And Sir Torrin Clegane, my friend, how you doing? And I will ask all of you in the chat as well, what you sipping on. Good to see you. So, as you heard in the intro, I am expecting Aged Boomer back on Sunday. He did say, go ahead, send me the notes. Although it doesn't sound like he's going to actually be home yet. He is still staying at temporary housing, but he does seem to have internet, so he may be able to run the show from there. But you know what? If it doesn't work out, I can always start a stream on Sunday myself. So we'll see.
I'll be here, so.
And Netter will be here, so everything will be just fine. So, yeah, and I of course, I've been very good lately about planning out my Friday night streams well in advance. So if you are really curious about who the upcoming guests are, be sure to go ahead to my channel and see right at the top. You should see all the.
We're at your channel.
Yeah. I mean, but you're specifically on this video. I mean, my channel page, not this particular video. All of my upcoming streams, live streams, should be up there. I specifically am calling attention to 2 weeks from tonight, which I believe is the 20-something. That would
I'll
be
tell ya.
the 28th.
Yeah.
I have a very special guest I'm really looking forward to. I feel like this is a big get. I didn't think that he would, but he said, he would. Michael French of Retro Blasting is going to be joining us. Now, I did extend the invitation to his lovely wife, Melinda, as well. We'll see if they both can make it. Subject to change. He's a busy guy. He just hit 100,000 subscriptions. He's very happy about that, and he's got a lot of streams in the pipeline. So I was so happy that he's squeezing me in. But not only am I going to be having Retro Blasting in 2 weeks, but I'm planning to have a special giveaway on that night. So if you are here live for that October 28th stream, which is basically the weekend of Halloween there, I'm gonna announce a giveaway. I'm not gonna give away exactly what it is I'm gonna be giving away, but I'm gonna have 3 prizes, and we'll choose those randomly from you guys in the chat.
And tell them why you're going to have that special giveaway.
Mm-hmm. Because I have finally hit 500 subscribers, and it stuck. I hit the 500, I got well over the 500, and then they took a bunch of them away, and I dropped under 500. I was kind of complaining about this last week. I said, Dad, insult to injury, YouTube sends me an email, congratulations on 500, and I'm looking and I'm back down to 480, but now I'm back up to I went back up to like 520 something, and now I'm back down to 512. YouTube is playing some games, people, but if the 500 sticks, and it should at this point, for another week or so, I will be getting a community tab. And I want to celebrate that. So by then I should have a community tab. And on that community tab, the first thing I will post is a little hint, a little tasty morsel that'll imply what the gift giveaway on the 28th is going to be. And then as we get a little bit closer, I'll give more details. So just looking forward to it. Real excited.
And speaking of giveaways, I am still trying to get to my 200. I'm at 175 because YouTube took a whole bunch of my subs away. But once I hit 200 and it sticks, I'm going to be having a special giveaway to thank all of my subscribers for supporting me and, just being with us all this time.
Yep.
And I've got at least 2 gifts that I can give away right now. I'm looking for a third.
Yep. She's unfortunately got a little while, though, because she hasn't hit that milestone yet. We're doing our best, and I know you guys are all subscribed to Netter to Netter's network, but...
just remember, when you do subscribe to someone, don't just hit subscribe and walk away. Keep them open in a separate tab. Hit play all for their videos so that YouTube knows you're not a bot, that you are an actual person.
Which is ironic, because you could definitely be streaming those videos in the background and not even watching them, as if you were a bot.
Exactly.
But David Pensack says, you going to give away a 6-inch Black Series Troy Bocelli action figure? No. Yeah, I did see that Hasbro was doing like giveaway, not giveaway, but you can now buy like yourself as an action figure, whether it's as a Ghostbuster or a Stormtrooper or Mandalorian or whatever. But as I looked more into it, it's not up to the quality that Hasbro should be putting out for action figures. It's not like, they're commercially available heads. What they're doing is you got to use an app to take a scan of your face, and then they have it resin printed. And I'm like, for crap's sake, there's people on Etsy doing that for the same price. I could just go ahead and do that myself. Yeah. So no, yeah, I wouldn't be doing that. And I think I'm not really a 6-inch Black Series kind of guy. However, you're very close in your guess. You're not far off. So stay tuned. No, I'm just
hush, hush.
I'm building hush, hush. Very, very hush, hush. Yeah, I am thinking maybe in 2023, one of the rewatches I want to do is LA Confidential. I think I definitely need to do that one of these upcoming months after the holidays, probably.
Never seen it.
Yeah, well, you will get an opportunity, of course.
Oh, yay.
So, pivoting back to so how you doing, my friend? The Gladiator of Kaon. I know the answer to this question, but I think that a lot of people might still be wondering. They may not have tuned into some of your other streams. So let's get the question out of the way right now. Explain what the Gladiator of Kaon is.
Well, the Gladiator of Kaon refers to Megatron, specifically the Prime cartoon, because he literally calls himself that in an episode of that cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I can show you the clip if you want.
You know what? I'd really rather not, because the last time when I had on Brandon the anime guy, I got my stream hit for some of the clips he was showing, so I'd rather avoid showing clips. If you got a still picture, I could do that.
Nah, that's not really worth it, and I'll just explain it. So,
Sure.
In the show, Megatron, or in that show, Megatron is a gladiator, and he's from the city of Kaon, so he's a gladiator of Kaon, and he calls himself that in the show. And also, I really like that show and the Megatron in that show.
Is that like a Megatron origin story? That's what he was before he was the leader of the Autobots?
Decepticons.
Megatron, not Optimus Prime. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, Megatron. No, Optimus was a librarian or a clerk. One of
I did
one
not
of
know that. That's very interesting.
Yeah, that's more of the modern origin for Optimus. His early origin is that he was a dock worker, like all the other Autobots, because they were like dock workers and warehouse workers, and like that sort of machinery. And the Decepticons are all kind of more military hardware.
Sure, fair enough.
Yeah. So that's where the Gladiator Kaon part comes from, and since it's connected, I'll just quickly do the icon I got here.
Mm-hmm.
Picture of Shattered Glass Rodimus Prime, who, like I've said before, at least once or twice before, the name and the icon, there is a connection between them, or that I have specifically made, and that's the Shattered Glass Hot Rod here is, what is it? Yeah, he's like a reference. The whole facial hair is a reference to Spock from the episode Mirror Mirror, and Shattered Glass itself is a reference to that episode already.
Sure.
And it's like, and Leonard Nimoy is, well, obviously everyone knows Leonard Nimoy is the one with the facial hair in that episode, and he would then go on to voice Galvatron in the Transformers movie, or the '86 film.
There you go.
And Megatron is turned into Galvatron in that movie. So it's like the name comes from Megatron, and then the image comes from the reference to Spock, but like double as a original series episode, and also an actor who voices another character that I like.
Which character is that?
Yeah.
That would be Galvatron.
Oh, Galvatron. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't understanding. Okay, cool.
And Cyclonus. I like him as well. Ironically, they're both purple, because purple is probably my second favorite color, with my first favorite color being orange. Which is also kind of fitting, because Hot Rod is an orangey kind of color.
Cool. So I'm gonna real quick. I'm kind of in the background here. I'm trying to get a link together, because what I want to share is over on MeWe. You have a group. I'm dropping the link right now. This is. Oh no, that's not it. Hold on a second.
Well, while you're looking that up, exact change only. Hi, sweetie. Long time no see.
I just dropped the wrong thing. Hold on a second.
Yeah, that's StreamYard.
Yeah, didn't mean to do that, and I don't know how to remove it.
What?
Remove the link that I just put in there, sweetie.
Oh. Why is it not letting me? I can't remove you because
Oh,
You have to
okay. I
remove
gotta
yourself.
actually
I
go
can I can
into.
click block on it. I don't know if that will do that for
They'll
everyone.
block
but-
me. I
yeah, that'll
think.
block him. He has to remove it himself.
There we go. Okay, I had to go into YouTube to do it. I can't do it in StreamYard. StreamYard,
I wonder
get
if
your
anyone
stuff
tried getting
together.
into the stream.
StreamYard, we need to be able to do certain things with StreamYard. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm totally capable of doing this directly through YouTube. You're supposed to make this easier. Let me get the link again. There we go. There we go. That's the one I was trying to do. So that's the MeWe link. You've got the name of the group is what is it? It's the Transformers fan group is what it is on MeWe. And I know that you drop links to different toy announcements and shots from comics and other videos related to the Transformers. Videos people have done about the Transformers and so forth. So if you are a Transformers fan, you definitely would be welcome to come over, create a MeWe account, and join us over there. Real quick, I want to say hi to Exact Change Only. How you doing, my friend? Glad to see you here. What's up? We're talking with Matthew Flynn, the Gladiator of Kaon. Specifically, at the moment, we are talking about Transformers because he's a huge Transformers fan, and the group that he's got on MeWe. And so, when did you first become shall we say, a Transformers enthusiast, Matthew?
So would you be referring to when I started actually enjoying the show and then choosing to watch it, or do you mean actually digging deep into it and learning as much as I can about
I'd
it?
say when you first started watching the show.
I would say around 10 years old, 10 years old, I think. I think the show that was on at that time probably would have been Robots in Disguise, I think. Or some of the Unicron trilogy shows. Because I remember having Armada on VHS.
Okay.
Although I had to throw that VHS because I made the dumb mistake of leaving it on the windowsill and it just being completely ruined by the constant sunlight.
That's rough. No,
Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah.
And also the cases themselves were just completely broken, and I'm not completely sure how or why.
So, as we always say here, own physical media, but then make sure you take care of that physical media because, when you lose it, you lose it. But, okay, so I guess that does beg the secondary question then. When did you really start, getting real fanatical about it, really digging in deep?
I would say probably about 2015 is when I would make a guess to when I actually properly started digging into it. Because it's at that point I then started collecting the comics, obviously reprinted by IDW because some of the others were either out of print or too expensive.
Sure.
And also that's when I started properly collecting the toys. I do this. Most of them up there were from 2015. Most of them from 2015, 2016.
Sure.
From those lines that were out at that time, I started collecting. I have mixed in a couple modern figures in there. I do intend to get a proper shelf dedicated for them and actually placing them in the specific decade the characters appeared in. How do
you? So this is something that I see in a lot of toy lines, obviously with Star Wars, and in some of the MeWe groups we've talked about this a little bit. Transformers, I see it with He-Man and whatnot, where we see this push by the toy companies to capitalize on nostalgia and re-release figures that we grew up with, but update them. So I grew up with the classic 1970s, 1980s 5 points of articulation Star Wars figures, which they have recreated and re-released a few of in their retro line. But now we have the vintage collection, which has more than 5 points of articulation. They have elbows and knees that bend. They got 360-degree movement on some of the joints and whatnot. Better sculpts. Hasbro is touting this photorealistic printing of the faces and whatnot. And we've seen the same thing with the Transformers. I remember the Transformers from the '80s. I didn't have a lot of them. I had a Bumblebee and I had Megatron. But I had friends who had like Optimus Prime and some of the others.
Wait, since you had Megatron, was there any situation where you took it outside and then were immediately stopped for having a gun?
No, no. I didn't because I just I was a little bit older in the '80s. I was in like high school when that was getting popular. So even though I say I had it, it was really my brother's. So and I wouldn't have been taking it out to play with it as a gun. Although I think if I was a little bit younger, I could have totally seen using it as though it was like a James Bond type of,
Yeah.
you know, but no, that never actually came up. But then again, here in the States, I grew up with cap guns, and I had cap guns all the time, and never had any problems.
Wait, you mean the mostly realistic ones with the little orange cap at the end?
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, then you put the strip in
Well,
the
there was
red strip with the little caps.
yeah, there was two different types. There was the ones that looked like revolvers, and you would put in a roll of paper that would be fed as you'd pull the trigger, and the hammer, it worked really like a bullet because it would slap down on the piece of paper and it would hit the cap and it would go pop, and then as you'd pull the trigger back it would advance to the next one. But then you had this string of paper coming out that you had to keep ripping out. So what some very clever person did was they made the revolvers much more realistic so that you could pop them open the way you'd open a real revolver, but
Yeah.
instead of putting in individual bullets, you'd put in a ring of a plastic ring that had 6 caps in it, and you'd pop it in and close it, and
I
then you
had
get
one of them.
yep, and then you get 6 shots, and then you'd have to reload just like
Yeah.
a real gun. That was actually kind of neat, and they looked pretty realistic from a distance, but you know back in the 70s and 80s, it was so common that kids had cap guns that we never really had problems, like
Yeah.
that.
I
It
think I
was,
had one of those toy revolvers like that. Except the one that I remember, it didn't have an actual barrel. The actual, like, you would actually pull the trigger and the hammer would go down, but it wouldn't actually do anything. It would literally just be for show,
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it would have an orange cap on the end.
Real quick, I want to say hi to the very rarely seen Maria of Tea and Tally. How are you doing? So good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by. I know how busy Friday nights are for you, so the fact that you could stop by and say hi really means a lot to me. I super appreciate it. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I'm sorry, we kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent about me and cap guns when we were actually talking about Megatron. But what set that up was talking about how a for example Optimus Prime from the '80s would look very different from an Optimus Prime you might get today. Are you the type that collects out of nostalgia, so you're looking for those older figures? Or are you like, no, I like the newer figures, they're more, detailed and stuff like that?
Well, I don't actually have any, like, like old 1984 figures or 85
Sure.
or any of like them. Mostly because I'm not completely sure where I would even get them. Because
Probably
obviously I
eBay.
can't find them online, but I think there might be other ways of getting them, but I'm not completely sure about that.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, but most of the figures I have are modern figures, but they're the ones that are they're like visually based on classic characters or designs, like
Sure.
Earthrise Starscream here.
Yep, yep.
This actually points out a thing with Hasbro's, like with Transformers. The original toys and the cartoon models didn't quite line up. They only kind of looked the same. Because what Hasbro did is they didn't well they based the animation model on the toy, but then they embellished it a little bit, made it look a bit nicer. So you end up
Yeah.
with a toy that doesn't quite match up with the animation model. Whereas something like GoBots, they just 100% have the animation model look like the toy.
Yeah. 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 Which I never felt like the GoBots figures were as cool as the
Yeah, the
Transformers.
GoBots were the cheaper alternative.
They definitely were. They were. There was little or no metal in them. They were almost all plastic. I had one of those too, and I don't even remember which figure it was. And it was very clear that they turned into robots, but only nominally. They were really
Yeah,
meant to be whatever the vehicle was looked great, and it was just barely a robot and not posable almost at
yeah.
all.
I'm pretty sure the GoBots toys were also a Takara, or imported from Takara. I think they were a Micro Change, I think they were called.
Sure.
Which, funnily enough, Micro Change was a subline, was the same subline that the original Transformers toys were imported from. Because it's a Diaclone, Micro Change, and I forgot what the other one was. So you end up with two different, or the same Takara line being imported with two different American shows competing with each other.
Sure. And speaking of retro blasting, which I was talking about, at the top of the show, he just did a video recently looking at some of the more recent iterations of certain Transformer figures, and he was doing like some comparison, and he basically said, this last figure is probably the last one I'm going to get. I'm not just going to keep getting newer versions of the same figure, but he
Yeah.
did some comparison and contrasting of some of the features. Oh no, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't
He did do a
transform.
video about Wheeljack, or the
And he
Autobot
did one
character
on
Wheeljack.
Voltron. I think it was the Voltron one that I was thinking
Yeah.
about. He did
Although
one
now
on
that you
Voltron.
say that, that does remind me of a thing that Hasbro does that kind of bugs me. Maybe it's something that will bug, or maybe it's something that bugs you too, but in like a different line.
Hmm.
Hasbro will release a figure of like
Hmm.
a specific character that people want, but not quite in the way they want it, and
Yeah,
then everyone buys it, and then they release another one that's more accurate to what people wanted.
yeah. So, yeah, there's been a lot of talk, especially recently, about Hasbro, specifically in the Star Wars collectors community, because well, here's what happens with Hasbro, and this has got to be especially tough for those of you on your side of the pond, because we well, actually, I don't even know to what extent it affects you in Britain, but I know in Australia, it's incredibly consternating. There are some figures in all of their lines, whether it's Transformers or Star Wars or G.I. Joe or whatever, that they only offer through their Hasbro Pulse. Here in the States, you just order it directly from Hasbro and they ship it to you.
Yeah,
I know that many of those figures are available then through like Entertainment Earth and Big Bang Pow and some of the other online toy distributors, but
yeah.
like you can't get them in Australia at all, and I don't know what kind of availability they are over there in the UK. That's got to be
I'm pretty sure I
extremely
can
frustrating.
access the Hasbro Pulse like website and order things through that, although I haven't done that. Some of the Hasbro Pulse stuff that's there, I have noticed on other, or not multiple other toys websites,
Hmm.
but one other one aside from Amazon that I normally go to is Kapow Toys, which is a UK, well, I say store, but they're a website, and
Sure, sure.
they know because they ship from the UK to other areas here. So if I
Yeah,
order from that
Boss's
website,
Bounty
I
has
get it
mentioned
much
them
quicker.
before. Okay.
Yeah, that's what happened with my Scorponok, or my Time Class Scorponok there. I ordered him from Kapow Toys, and he came like a couple days after I ordered him.
Oh,
Whereas
nice.
from
Okay.
whereas from Amazon, I have to wait like sometimes weeks before
Yeah.
something arrives.
Yeah, you get lucky when you're using those secondary options, but let me tell you something. I've got some serious problems with the distribution model of Hasbro in general. I've got a
Yeah,
video that's going to be coming out pretty soon where Netter had gotten me an Antok Merrick X-wing fighter for last Christmas, and shortly after that, they announced a pre-order of Antok Merritt's R2 unit. So you can't really even have the complete, you know, vehicle with the pilot and the R2 unit for a whole nother year. I had to pre-order that figure and it just arrived today. And that's extremely annoying. That's the kind of thing where you're charging a premium price through Hasbro Pulse. Why don't you just have all the figures in there? Charge a little bit
yeah,
higher, charge it an extra $10 for the figure and whatever, and do it all together. They don't do that. And I'm honestly getting sick and tired of pre-orders. I really am. If
yeah,
Announce the figure, let us get all excited about it, that's fine, but don't start taking sales until you're ready to ship, because this is not crowdfund. You don't need to crowdfund as a big company like
yeah,
Hasbro, you know? Anyway, kind of got off on a little bit of a
yeah.
tangent there, but that's my experience with. But bringing it back to your original question, yeah, I have seen multiple versions of Star Wars figures come out. I'm not quite as picky as a lot of the collectors are. I know, like, I'll listen to like Bosk's Bounty or whatever, and he'll talk about some minor variation in a clone trooper that they're putting out, and he'll go, I don't like this sculpt because clearly the joints and the head are too small, so you can't really believe that this is armor being worn by a figure in this scale. This later figure came out that's better, so I'm hoping that they'll use that mold for all future ones and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, for army building, I'm still using 1997 Power of the Force figures, where all the figures look like, the Hulk, I mean,
Yeah,
I've got so many of those stormtroopers. I'm good. And now that they're starting to put out really, really good ones with removable helmets and multiple joints,
yeah.
it's not necessarily what I need. My diorama is just fine with the big
Uh,
beefy ones.
Give me a moment. I have an example of something relating to what you're saying. Give me a moment.
Oh, sure, sure, sure. Ah, he's doing the same thing I do. He's stretching out the earphones, trying to
Come out anyway.
hear me when you're across the room.
There he is. Okay, so this one isn't related. I just thought I'd get this out anyway. This is the Revenge of the Fallen Leader Optimus. I've had
Okay.
him since it came out. The batteries actually still work on this thing, surprisingly
Wow.
enough. But that's specifically the thing I was grabbing. I just decided to grab that anyway while I was grabbing this. So for the more recent Transformers, they released a Starscream figure.
Uh-huh.
Here's the Siege Starscream.
Okay.
He is a Cybertronian mode. Obviously, Siege had the whole allure of that is that you're getting figures of characters in their Cybertronian mode.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the whole point of Siege. But most people didn't really necessarily want the Cybertronian mode. They wanted an Earth mode Starscream like this one here.
Sure.
And so you have a situation where people are like, this is the Starscream that's coming out in like a couple of months. I'll buy that because it looks pretty good. Then you buy it, and then Hasbro's like, oh, by the way, we're releasing this Earth mode one, the exact one that you want, and it looks exactly how you want it. And
Yeah.
you're like, I already bought this one.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, fine, guess I'm gonna buy this one as well. And then that's kind of made me go, you know what? If you're gonna release a figure that's almost there,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna pass on that one and let that one go by, and I'm gonna buy the one that I know you're gonna release. That's the one that I want.
Exactly. I get it. Or they get you to buy both of them like you did.
Yeah. Yeah, I took the weapons off of this one and gave it to like two of my other figures
Yeah.
because the weapons he came with match better with some other characters that I have that don't even have the correct weapon to begin with. That's
Yeah.
another
I
thing
hear a
Hasbro
lot
does, they
about that
release
with
the wrong weapons or the
I
wrong
hear a lot of
accessories.
that with Hasbro. Tony from Analog Toys was just doing one about the recent announcements of the Raiders of the Lost Ark figures. And what's really bothersome is, when you do, for example, an Indiana Jones figure, there's different outfits, different accessories from different scenes in different movies that Indiana Jones has done. And same with, the other characters. And it just seems that the characters they decided to release in their first wave are all characters that if you wanted to do a diorama with them, they're all from different scenes in the movie where they don't line up. You don't have, you have like Indiana Jones with the whip, but he's wearing a jacket which he wasn't wearing in that particular scene, and it's just weird and awkward. And I think a lot of people do a lot of customizing where they do head swaps, they do soft good swaps, give the accessories to other figures because that's the one that should have the satchel as opposed to the gun or whatever the case is, so
I would actually recommend buying the Siege Starscream, but not necessarily as the Starscream mold. One of the repaints. That's another thing Hasbro does with Transformers. I'd say buy the Starscream, like the Earth mode one, and then get this mold because this mold is worth buying. But I would say get it as a different character.
Gotcha.
Actually, I have a different example of exactly that thing. Because so this is Crosshairs and Ironhide. They're the exact same mold, but they're different characters. That's essentially what I did. I just went. I probably could have skipped on this Ironhide and bought the Earth mode Ironhide, but that's in a 2-pack or an exclusive 2-pack and very difficult to find. So I just went. I'll buy the Crosshairs because that's a different character. I at least can say I have the mold, just not with the character I want. I'm not buying this character twice.
Right.
Or technically, I'm not buying this character twice. Physically, I am buying the same figure twice. It just looks different.
Yeah.
So somewhat of a justification. Also, this isn't Ironhide's weapon. This is a different character's weapon.
Sure.
That's another thing I'm doing. They don't release the figures with their correct weapons half the time, so I have to scavenge through my other figures and then collect an appropriate weapon.
I do feel that this is a great time for toy collectors and whatnot, especially customizers, because right now we have the connectivity with other fans that we can share this information on the internet and whatnot, and as a community, we can find solutions. So sometimes it'll be as simple as, if you want the exact right gun for this figure, buy this, and then you okay, and then you go out and you get that figure. Or there's a lot of people now that are doing 3D printing and so on and so forth, and they'll go, you could just, for, a fraction of the price, you could buy a copy of this gun or, a customized version that's more accurate or whatever the case is. And that's great. I mean, that's another thing Michael French on Retro Blasting always says: the fans are doing the best work. And some of my favorite
the companies take advantage of that kind of thing as well. So, like, here's the figure, and then here in this exclusive 3-pack are his appropriate weapons. It's like, oh, you're gonna have to buy them both to actually complete the.
And from a marketing standpoint, there is a certain legitimacy to that. I do see why they would do that. But at the same time, there's quite enough collectors that go, I'm not buying, like you said, I'm not buying that 2-pack that includes a figure I already have with a slight repaint just to get a particular gun or whatever it is. To heck with that. In the Star Wars area, we're seeing the same thing. And this is where two problems with Hasbro come together. For one, people that were into the Mandalorian can go and they want to get even if you're not into the Mandalorian introduced the Dark Trooper, which fans of the video games were excited about. Dark Forces, exactly. So you want to get that action figure now.
Yeah, I
have
do.
that?
Yeah. Also,
Nice.
something just dropped. I don't know what that is. But yeah, this was my dad's.
Cool,
It also
cool.
needs cleaning, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna put this back now.
Yeah, those graphics are pretty dated these days, but it was still
Yeah,
a lot of fun. Um,
yeah, it's a Doom clone.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was. But it was still a lot of fun, and so there's a lot of collectors that wanted to get, and especially if you watch The Mandalorian, you got like six, total of 12 maybe in the bay, where you got six on each side, and unfortunately it was a pre-order on Hasbro Pulse exclusive, and you could only get two of the figures. They limited you to two, and it was it's like a deluxe figure because it was the figure with the you know little alcove that they recharge in or whatever. So it's like
Yeah,
you can only buy two, but you want to get like a dozen of them. Well, you could also get. They put out another version of it, like with fire effects and whatnot, with a Grogu and Luke Skywalker figure. That's an exclusive. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want that. I want the one that comes with the alcove and stuff. So I'm like, screw it. I'll wait. They're probably going to put out this Dark Trooper on a blister pack, individually,
yeah,
or it might become available through Tungori, loose, and I'll buy a
yeah.
bunch of them, and I'll just make my own alcoves. I'll just 3D print them, and this is what Hasbro doesn't understand. Every time a collector goes, screw it, I'll make it myself, or I'll 3D print it, or I'll get it from someone on Etsy. That's money Hasbro's leaving on the table. They're missing out.
Yeah.
So I don't understand what their business model is or why they do that.
No, I've not no clue either.
So that's the Transformers. What are some of the? Well, I know one of the others that you're really into. You're also a big fan of Ben 10, and I know that because you had me and Netter on a series of shows on your channel
Yeah.
where we reviewed the many seasons of Ben
Yeah.
10.
And the multiple movie or TV movies.
Yeah, exactly. Some better than others.
Yeah.
Um,
There was
that
actually
was
another Transformers thing that I was gonna
mm,
share before
sure,
you
sure,
pivot to something else.
sure.
So you can probably see this behind me. It's probably a little bit difficult to see. These are the instruction manuals for multiple of my Transformers.
Wow.
I have a bunch here. Multiple. These ones at the front, they're like newer ones. I
Uh-huh.
have instruction manuals here for figures I don't even own anymore. For some reason,
Wow.
I just hoard the instruction manuals, even though I barely follow them. I just pick the figure up and start playing with it.
I was just gonna say, are they instructions for like how to convert them and whatnot?
Yes. For some reason, I don't know why. One or two of the Transformers I got, I'm pretty sure are knockoffs.
Oh,
I can't be sure. So this one here, this is for Revenge of the Fallen Starscream. I think it was the Voyager figure. It's literally just that, just a bit of folded paper with the small amount of instructions on it, which is not how the Revenge of the Fallen instructions were designed. They were designed like this, with like
gotcha.
this at the top, and then you fold it out into the rest of the instructions with all that other information around it. But this one from the same line doesn't have any of that. It's literally just the instructions with like vehicle mode on one side, robot mode on the other.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, so was this a knockoff? Is that why the instructions are like this? Or is
Or
this
did
actually
or did the
packaged like
company
it?
just cheap out on you? It sometimes
Yeah,
happens.
can't be sure with that, honestly. I do have some instructions here for Transformers figures that aren't necessarily like official mainline Transformers. So I
Sure.
have Binaltech Wheeljack. I don't have this figure anymore. He snapped in half and I had to throw him.
Ooh. Yeah,
He
yeah.
also had a translucent sword that snapped in half basically immediately. Because if
Wow.
there's one thing that I don't like, it's translucent plastic on Transformers,
I can
especially in
understand
high
that.
pressure points on the figure. Because it will break and you don't have to touch it, it will just break by itself. I even have one of the Transformers up there that has translucent plastic that just broke. I haven't even touched it. That's kind of a thing with like Transformers. If it's gold plastic, don't touch it, it'll be fine. If you touch it, it'll break. If it's
Yeah.
clear plastic, just don't even bother. It was going to break either way.
Absolutely. Real quick, let me say hi to Keely Chow. He says, what's going on? We're talking Transformers a little bit with Matthew Flynn, the Gladiator of Kaon. He says, Friday Night Tights Raid. Thanks so much. Glad you could stop by. Hope you're having a good Friday night. So, yeah, I get really frustrated with... And see, I understand... especially with vintage figures, they made toys for kids to play with. They really only expected them to last for a couple of years because they figured that's all the use that kids would get out of them. The idea that they would become collector's items just did not, was not something that toy companies thought of back in the day. So fast forward to the modern day, these toys that they're putting out now are not being put out as toys. They're being put out to the collector's market. And if they cheap out on that, collectors get pissed because we're paying a premium price for premium figures. I expect the plastic to be durable, to last. I don't want painted silver. I want vac metallized,
Here's something that I will point out. You might be able to tell how much of him is clear plastic and which is solid.
Yeah.
I'll give you a hint. It's this here.
Yeah.
All of this. The joints, the leg, literally the entire lower half of his legs is clear plastic. So this is going to break eventually. And I won't even be touching it. I also won't be touching it because it's I don't particularly like the proportions on this figure. I would rather because the Earth mode Proud has better proportions and looks better.
Sure.
And his gun's wonky. I'm just gonna keep this one on display.
Yeah.
I hope to get the Earthrise Earth mode Prowl, but he's in a 2-pack with the Earth mode Ironhide figure. And like I said, that pack is expensive.
Do you know if there's anyone out there that offers replacement parts for those figures? Maybe someone on Etsy or something?
No, I'm not sure about Etsy. I think you can contact Hasbro directly and ask for tell them that something's broke or something along those lines, and they'll send replacement pieces. I feel like him being his entire lower body being clear plastic is more of a design flaw rather than something with me breaking it accidentally.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Here's an instruction manual I'm sure you'll find interesting.
Oh, wait, let me zoom on that one. Oh, is that one of those Star Wars Transformers?
Yes.
Turns into a snow speeder.
Yes, the snow speeder. Funnily enough, this isn't the only one I have. I actually have the figure back there. I have the Chewbacca and Han Solo Millennium Falcon one.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I'm actually happy that this is the instruction manual I still have, because this one is a nightmare to transform.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. The Millennium Falcon, the Han Solo Millennium Falcon one, that one's not really that difficult to figure out.
Sure.
So I'm happy I don't have the instructions for that. I mean, I would like to keep them if I can find them, but the fact that I don't have them is not too big a concern because I know how to transform that thing already. Sure. But this one's a nightmare to transform. I would rather have the instructions to transform that one because you've already seen the figure once already, and he's in a weird, twisted mess. Because I've tried transforming him once or twice before and just not gotten anywhere. Yep. Actually, I can show you the Millennium Falcon because he is missing some pieces though. Like the radar dish right here was a separate piece that you peg on. It just straight up dropped off and disappeared into the aether. And also this bit right here, there's meant to be an extra thing there to cover the gap. Because that's meant to be a landing gear, and there's meant to be a thing right there.
Sure.
Don't quite know what happened to that. I'm assuming it must have broke. Oh, and also the missiles, they're gone as well. But I feel like firing missiles is just a guarantee to disappear with a children's toy. And also, right in there, you can see them. The cockpit does open, but I lost the little minifigures that came with them, so I put a Power Ranger in there.
Okay.
He was the right size, so he went in there. think
there
he's
is something odd about the fact that those Transformers.
Oh no, Chewbacca's there. Okay, yeah, you can see it.
Oh,
There.
you do have Chewbacca. Okay, cool.
Okay, I completely forgot he was in there because the Power Ranger was the only one I could see in there. Okay, so Han Solo no longer has the Millennium Falcon. The Power Ranger has just come out of nowhere and taken it from him
I
and,
guess so.
kidnapped Chewbacca. Yeah,
And
Han Solo would go into this cockpit here. It would have a gun turret on there, but that disappeared as well.
gotcha.
I wonder if the electronics work in this. Let's try this.
Well, that's weird. It doesn't do Millennium Falcon sound effects. It does Chewbacca sound effects.
I think it might. It might be multiple. No, same one. Oh wait, hold on. There's a second button at the front now.
She's the fastest ship in the fleet.
Okay,
red
that's
light
on.
light us up right there. I think that might be
Cool.
the same clip every time.
Really bad feeling
Oh
about
no, it's
this.
not.
Prepare to make the jump to light speed.
Please, got
Interesting.
sound effects.
Charge up the main gun.
No.
May the force be with you. She's the fastest ship
Okay,
in the
there we go.
fleet.
Now we're cycling back to the beginning. Yeah, there's one weird thing about this is it pegs in securely on one side. I think it's this side that pegs in correctly, and then this side doesn't quite. So you can very easily just do that.
Wow. Yeah.
But that's intentional because the transform. This one's Han Solo. This one's Chewbacca.
So that's what I
That's
find kind of
working.
interesting, that the figure that the Transformer becomes Han Solo and the other half of it becomes Chewbacca, and yet there's also a mini Han Solo and Chewbacca that you can put into the cockpit. That makes no sense.
Yeah, there were also Marvel Transformers as well, but I lost the figures for those. Actually, these do have some kind of story attached to them, but it's only in the bios on the back of the boxes.
Yeah.
And it's essentially that the Star Wars movies themselves happen basically exactly the same, except their ships turn into giant mech versions of them. Because Darth Vader turns into the Death Star.
Of
And,
course.
Yeah. And obviously Luke turns into a snowspeeder and an X-Wing. There's a separate version of Luke that turns into an X-Wing.
Yeah, you can't. I can't even imagine what the fictional story for that would be. It doesn't line up. And there's Wolfie. We were just talking about you a little while ago. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, Wolfie's there. There you go, there's Chewbacca. So I told you this wasn't really that difficult. In fact, I'm pretty sure you can pull that off. You can't peg it into his hand, though, so I don't know why that's removable.
Yeah,
It'd be super weird, though, if you could peg it into his hand and just do that.
I guess.
I don't know any situation where that would be useful. I don't know if this even has any kind of damaging effect. Unless someone literally intentionally jumps right into that. I know that the cockpit is also removable. Yeah, because you can peg it on his shoulder, like some kind of shoulder cannon. A very odd shoulder cannon, mind you, but...
So you touched on something there by pointing out that these Star Wars Transformers, they're basically in a different line. The fictional story behind them has
Nope, that's caught the button. Sorry, I interrupted what you were saying.
That's okay. Doesn't line up with any of the other Transformer storylines. So do you just, when you pick up those kinds of figures, do you just pick them up as a novelty, or are you just a completist when it comes to Transformers?
Yeah, I'm mostly a completist.
Okay.
I used to
It's
have
Transformers,
a bunch of,
you got to get it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's basically how it functions for me. It's Transformers, so I buy it, even if it's a knockoff. Because I used to have a oh, why is this so bloody difficult? Here's where I'm going to end up, like, bro, snapping this thing in half trying to transform it. Wait, no, I see what I'm doing wrong.
There's a little bit of a trick there.
Yeah, the sides here fold around and over,
Gotcha.
and then his arms are here. I was trying to rotate the entire thing.
No, I get it. Some of these Transformers, the engineering's actually quite brilliant, but it's not necessarily intuitive. I get that.
Especially if you haven't done this in a long time.
Sure,
Also, this thing, right, the cockpit, very easily just flops
Yeah.
right open. Yeah, I don't... There we go.
I've also
Although
found that that can sometimes be the difference of whether or not it's plastic pieces or
there you go.
metal.
I had a feeling I was gonna.
There you go.
Hopefully that wasn't a severe break. Okay, no, his arm goes right back on. Crisis averted. I did not break him. There you go. There's Han Solo. Peg
Yep.
the main Falcon.
And
Oh,
Matanui is saying that he doesn't really know Transformers that well. That's fine. That's fine. We're learning something tonight.
Interesting. Okay, I'm pretty sure this cockpit pegs into one of these holes on his shoulders, but the peg is actually not big enough, so it's literally just.
That's strange.
It's just resting right in. I distinctly remember this actually pegging in there, but it doesn't now, and I don't quite know why. I guess I'll put the cockpit in his hand if it will fit. It'll be super weird, but then again, the whole situation here with this isn't exactly normal.
No, I agree.
There, that's the best I can do with that.
Yeah,
That's
Matanui was saying
not
that
how I remember that.
he said for some reason I had a weird dislike for the Star Wars Transformers. Yeah, I mean, I could kind of see that.
Yeah, it's kind of hit or miss.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're trying to go for both the Star Wars and the Transformer, thing. But I think the people that would be interested in both and would want those figures is a little bit nichey,
Yeah.
But
I do distinctly remember as a kid taking these two figures and then combining them together in their robot modes, essentially by doing, not necessarily turning them back into vehicle mode, but kind of partially turning them back into vehicle mode and pegging them back together, and then sort of doing some kind of weird, super tall Millennium Falcon robot thing. It's not a thing in the instructions. It was just purely a thing that I just decided to do with them.
Sure.
Which I suppose is just a thing with Transformers in general, and just make up weird alt modes that aren't actually in the instructions.
I mean, it's kind of the whole point of playing with toys, right? You use your imagination and come up with stuff. I do honestly think that's why, and I never really got into it, but I think that's why a lot of people are into Legos, because you can make what it's intended to make, but you can also use those pieces to make all sorts of other things. You can combine them with other sets to make new stuff. So
that's what I used to do with Legos. Although weirdly enough, my young cousin who really likes playing with Legos, every time I would visit him and he would get me to play with the Legos with him, for some reason he would be adamant that we follow the instructions and build it exactly as it's shown in the instructions, and then disassemble it and then reassemble it the exact same way again. And I'm just sitting there going, yeah, the whole point of Lego is that you use other pieces and mix and match, and I'm trying to convince him to go outside of the box a little bit with it, and he's just sitting there stubbornly sticking with the instructions that it came with and how it's meant to look by the instructions it came with.
I kind of see it both ways. I mean, it depends on what your particular play style is and what you're planning to do with that Lego. So the one Lego set that I had was a ranch house with an attached garage. Okay. And I could make all kinds of stuff out of it, but I followed the instructions and I made that house, and then it just sat as that house on display, and I know a lot of people do that. I've got a buddy who's got a bunch of Star Wars Legos, the bigger ones, like the big Millennium Falcon, and so forth. And he builds these things and then he displays them that way,
Yeah. I feel like with the massive sets like that, then it probably would be something I would display rather than mix and match. Like the smaller sets of Legos, I tend to build it maybe once or twice how it is in the instructions, and then I'll start taking other Lego bits that I have and customizing it and doing all sorts of things with it.
Matanui's pointing out that there's tons of original creations by fans. Yeah, there's fans out there. I've heard secondhand that they'll put out instructions with lists of bricks.
That's a brick list.
Yeah, brick
where
list.
People customize their own thing and then put
and then they'll say this is how you make it. Yeah,
website.
Exactly.
And here are the pieces you need. I think you go to the website and download the instructions that other people upload there.
Yep.
I think I've not actually done it directly myself, but I know of that whole thing.
And say hi real quick to the Catman, aka Dee Dee Meyer. Hello, good evening, all. Good to see you, my friends. Always good to see you. So Exact Change Only is asking us, do you guys do you build model kits? Do you build any model kits, Matthew?
I do not have any model kits myself. I know the primary model kit that most people jump to is Gundam, because
Sure.
that's the obvious and like the most direct one that most people jump to. I've
So
considered that, but I haven't really followed through on that.
I myself, I used to build models all the time. When I was in high school, I was in a model makers club. I built all the cars that I wanted to own. You know, I built
Yeah,
79 Corvette Stingray, and I made a 57 Chevy Bel Air, 67 Vet, and then a little bit later, I started getting into like the Star Trek ships. So I did a really highly detailed Enterprise D. This was before they came with like the fiber optic lights and stuff. But then I started getting into doing the Klingon ships. In fact, I built a Klingon bird of prey, very high detail. Put the logo for the local Klingon ship on it, and we presented it to Robert O'Reilly, Gowron, at a convention. Don't know if he still has it or not, but
yeah,
we gave it to him. But
yeah. That is cool.
But yeah. And Matanui also mentions Bionicles.
Yeah, that's another thing I remember growing up with as a
That's
kid.
kind of I didn't know much about Bionicles. I got the impression it was kind of a cross between like Lego and Transformers, but like
Yeah,
kind of like action figures.
not so much transform because there's no actual transforming with them. It's mostly just like humanoid robot sort of things.
And you can mix and match parts and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
you can mix pieces together. And
Which
like I said on the Culture Fortress stream, I once had a couple of Bionicles that I pulled apart and reassembled into some sort of weird chimera centaur thing
yeah, I it kind
that
of
wouldn't
reminds me
stand
a
up because
little.
it would literally just flop over immediately because it had no support.
It reminds me a little bit in concept of the Micronauts from the 1970s, which I actually had a lot
Yeah.
of.
Wait, didn't they have removable pieces that you could peg onto the other figures?
Yep, and in fact, you could interact. You could take apart the vehicles and the figures, and you can mix and match and do all kinds of things. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was actually
I
really,
actually
really cool.
have one of the Bionicle or animated films. I think it's the first one. Yeah, Mask of Light, I believe it's called. There it is. I actually had this film on VHS. This was one of the other VHS movies that I had that was also completely ruined by my ineptitude at keeping things safe.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
also had all three of the original Star Wars trilogy on VHS as well, and likewise, they were also on the windowsill with all the others.
yeah. Sunlight will kill that stuff. Exact Change Only says if you like Transformers, Gundam has transformable
Oh,
kits. There's quite a few that can transform. That's pretty
yeah, I
cool.
already know. I already know about some of those. Gonna. I think the one that I know about is Gundam Epion from Gundam Wing. That's one that I know can transform, but I don't actually have it.
Matanui says that the Bionicle name canonically is biomechanical bionicles. That makes sense.
Yeah,
And Exact Change Only is saying post pics of your Trek ships, Troy. I'm not even actually sure I still have any of them. I have a couple that need to be built because
yeah.
I've gotten like a D7 as a gift, and I've been meaning to build that one. But yeah,
I'm
if I
assuming at some point you just sort of built it and then put it away somewhere and then forgot about it.
exactly, and I know right where they would be. They're in the garage. I'll look into it. Exact Change Only, and I'll see if I
Yeah,
actually have any that are like that I could pull out and display, and I'll post pics. Otherwise, I can show you the kits that I have that I plan to assemble someday, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of projects going,
Yeah.
and a lot of videos. This is how I justify it. You know, if I'm going to do these things, I guess I'll get footage of myself doing them so that I can share it with you guys. You know, that's kind of the plan. But anyway,
Yeah, we can pivot back to Ben 10 now.
yeah, let's pivot back to Ben 10. So, as I said, I've got up a list of my guest appearances, and a series of those guest appearances I did over on your channel, where we were doing reviews of the various seasons of Ben 10 and the specials. So, when did you start watching Ben 10? When it first came out?
Yep, that would be when I watched Ben 10, when it was first airing back in December of 2005, I think was when the first episode aired. And then the rest of the seasons were over 2006 and 2007.
Sure. And although we were focused on the shows,
Yeah,
you
and
did
mostly in chronological order,
right.
with some exceptions here and there.
You did show that you were into the toys as well. You had action figures and whatnot.
Yeah, I have those toys are in a different toy box.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You how extensive is that collection? Did you go out of your way to get every single alien that Ben 10 turned into? And
I wasn't quite like super extensive with Ben 10 because there were multiple like other toys in the line other than just like the small little figures. There was also slightly bigger figures that would transform into something. That's kind of a case of it turns into a thing because we say it turns into the thing. It's like that kind of it's that kind of transforming. It's not like it's a thing you'll recognize when you see it. It's more of a you'll accept what it is when we tell you what it is.
So we might actually have an interesting dichotomy here, whereas Transformers was a toy line given multiple iterations of fiction, different TV shows, movies, comic books. Some of them were interconnected, some of them were not. But it started out as a toy line first, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Whereas Ben 10 was the other way around. It was a TV show that they marketed with toys. Am I correct?
Yeah. And then it continued going because the toys sold well. And also the general concept of Ben 10 lends itself to all kinds of various toys that you can make. You know, like different roleplay items, like an Omnitrix toy.
Right.
And also some that transform from very suggested suggested modes that you just sort of had to accept was what they say they are.
Right. That's just to give a little perspective. I grew up in the era where everything, movies and cartoons and stuff, that's where the things came from. That's where the licensed products came from, and then they made toys, right? So you'd have Star Wars, and then Kenner would start putting out action figures and vehicles. You had Planet of the Apes, and then Mego started putting out, the figures and the play sets and so forth. And it was, I think it was like right in the 80s where the shift changed. And they started putting out toys like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Transformers, G.I. Joe, where they had toys they wanted to put out. And they told the cartoon companies like Filmation and whatnot,
or Marvel
make a
Productions
cartoon about these figures, put something together and get kids excited. And these cartoons actually ended up kind of becoming, at least a lot of the adults at the time called it this, half-hour commercials for toys.
Yeah.
I don't really see that as a problem because I loved that. I loved that synergy. I loved being able to, play with toys that I was seeing the stories for on a daily basis. I could either reenact those episodes or create my own stories in between or whatever the case is, But yeah, it's all.
Wasn't there a law passed in like the early 80s that prohibited the use of actual cartoons to sell toys?
Not
I don't know what it
exactly.
specifically
What
is,
it
but I
was that if they were going to do that, it had to have some sort of an educational value. So that's why you
oh,
would
that's
see
why like He-Man ended with a message
He-Man
at the
and
end.
GI Joe always ended with some focusing on something from the episode that constituted a lesson to be learned, and
Yeah.
that's why you get GI Joe, and knowing is half the
Yeah.
battle.
Transformers did that too, but they didn't do it at the end of the episode. More of like there was a moment during like somewhere during the actual episode itself where a character will like either explain a lesson to other characters, or
Yeah,
like in some way the lesson will be conveyed during the episode, like at one specific moment, and then it will be back to what the actual episode was about.
right. Yeah, so that was the conceit at the time. You got a lot of say no to drugs type of messages, and
Yeah,
don't be a bully, and all that kind of stuff. I think that a lot of the GI Joe ones were actually pretty good because they were character building, heroic, do the right thing
yeah,
kind of stuff. I mean, that was pretty cool. The GI Joe had it the hardest because GI Joe was pivoting away from GI Joe's history was and it's very closely tied to Action Man over on your side of the pond.
yeah,
We had these military figures in a 12-inch scale through the 50s and 60s, and then we went into Vietnam, and sentiment for soldier figures started to turn away. So in the 70s, we saw two things happen to GI Joe. One was the parents not being too keen on military figures. The other thing was a major gas crisis. Sound familiar? History
yeah,
repeating? But yeah, major gas prices through the roof, and may not realize this, but plastic is a petroleum product. So when gas prices go up, the price of plastic goes up. So 12-inch figures got really, really expensive. So the first thing that happened was they dropped to 6 inches. That's where you
yeah,
get your Mego figures, and that's where you got the G.I. Joe Adventure Team. That's where you got G.I. Joe. Instead of being a soldier, he was, an adventurer. He was an archaeologist. He was a cold weather rescue guy. He was a fireman and
yeah. He fought
whatnot.
aliens, or
And he
a
fought
alien.
aliens, right? And he had a backpack with a laser light, and
Yeah,
he had kung fu grip. His hands were
yeah,
rubber and whatnot.
yeah. The moving eyes thing and realistic
Just
hair. I think it was advertised as.
Yeah, well, that kind of carried over from the 70s 12-inch figure. They had this flocking hair where you'd have like this afro and full beard on the 12-inch figure. They kind of carried that into the 6-inch line, but very quickly they went to molded plastic and painted for the hair. The flocking thing did not. It was kitschy for the 70s, didn't go over real well in the 80s. And then later in the 80s, they said, hey, now Kenner's doing real well with these little 3 3/4 inch figures. We're going to do that too, but we're going to put knee and elbow joints in it. So they got more
Yeah,
mobility, which was a huge boon. That really progressed the action figure market back then. So, yeah. But yeah, so were you ever? You didn't do the Action Man thing, did you?
I'm pretty sure I know I used to have multiple different Action Man figures. I don't know if I still have them. I do remember having one Action Man figure that came with like a giant manta ray submersible thing
Sure.
that had like missile launching features and a targeting system that made no sense because the figure can't actually rotate his head up like this. His head just
Yeah,
stays like straight forward, but like down like that underneath the
yeah,
figure. So it's like the targeting is like basically here, and it's like there's no way he can like target with that.
because he can't look up to see it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
get that. Yeah, that's become the kind of thing that modern toy designers are thinking through more often because I think there is a greater expectation with the greater maneuverability of figures that's come about.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, by comparison, back in the 80s when Return of the Jedi came out, you had your 5 points of articulation, and their arms would be straight out in front of them, and so would their legs if they were sitting. So when you'd put that biker scout onto the bike, his legs were sticking straight out in front of him, and there was a T-bar holding him down in order to ride that bike. Now, in the 90s, when they re-released those bikes, they put out a figure that had, bold legs so that it could actually straddle the bike the way a biker scout would ride the bike,
Yeah.
So
Pretty sure the Action Man figures I had were probably the Hasbro ones. Because Hasbro got the rights to Action Man in the mid-90s, I think.
yeah.
So yeah, the ones I had would have been the Hasbro figures.
Sure.
Although at the time I didn't know the difference, I just saw it as an Action Man figure.
Okay, so Hasbro is the current holder of the G.I. Joe line. Before them, I'm pretty sure it was Mattel.
No, Hasbro are the ones that had G.I. Joe.
All the way back?
Yeah, all the way back to the 60s figure.
Is it? Okay. Well, who?
Yeah, because Hasbro made the G.I. Joe figure because it was the first action figure. And then that figure was imported over here to the UK. It became Action Man. Or Palitoy sold it as Action Man. And then the G.I. Joe figure was sent over to Japan, or imported to Japan, and they called it Combat Joe.
Okay.
And then they changed it from Combat Joe to Henshin Cyborg, and then they downsized it to a smaller size. And then that smaller size was then brought back over to America by Mego and became the Micronauts.
Right. Okay, yeah.
And Palitoy spun off Action Man into Action Force in the late 70s and early 80s.
Which was about the time Real American Hero started.
Yeah, and then a couple of years later, G.I. Joe came out, and they just sort of folded the early Action Man, Action Force into G.I. Joe. But they kept Action Man, Action Force separate from each other.
Yep.
I think they just sort of started selling G.I. Joe figures, and they just called them Action Force.
Right.
Even though they weren't exactly the same, they were slightly different molding. The G.I. Joes had more articulation than the Action Force figures had. Well, they were slightly smaller, and they had more limited articulation.
So Sir Torrin points out that he had those bull-legged troopers and a Luke Skywalker too. The crummy thing about Luke was that he couldn't take his hat off. So if you wanted a Poncho Luke without the helmet, you'd have to do a head swap. But as I also recall, and the reason I brought it up was because that bow-legged trooper also was the one figure that could put his head up like this, because he would lean forward and he had to look forward in order to see. That was And now, since then, now the figures have rocker joints on the hips and they have a ball joint on the head, so they can be put in all kinds of poses and ride the different vehicles and so forth. But so Ben 10 and So what else? What other? Oh, you wanted originally. You were kind of hoping that Aged Boomer was going to be here because you're a bit of a gamer. So tell us about some of the games that you enjoy.
And an anime nerd as well.
And anime.
Which actually I don't know how much of an anime nerd Boomer is, but I know he has seen some anime.
Yep.
I suppose it would be he's more anime than you, but I don't know how much more.
Significantly. I mean, he he knows what Crunchyroll is, and
I think at some point I'll have to actually have a proper talk with him about retro games and anime, get a real not so much heart to heart, but a conversation. Oh, okay, no, that unplugged the mic.
You just disconnected your camera.
Yep. God damn it. Okay, give me a moment.
I know when you first logged on, you didn't even have your mic plugged in. But Yeah,
Yeah.
and I know I've been promising the chat for a while, but I will be having some toy videos coming up very very shortly, mostly with custom figures that I've been assembling and putting into packaging, custom packaging too, and a bunch of those are going to be Star Wars Holiday Special related, so that ought to be a lot of fun.
Okay. I think the wire is still like attached somewhere. Okay, it hasn't. The wire didn't completely come out. It only slightly came out.
Okay, you might have to. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. He has to come out and he'll come back in. So we'll bring him back in as soon as he comes back. But let me see real quick what the chat's saying because I see Sir Torn trying to get my attention. Oh yeah, he had said he had one of those bow-legged figures, and they never made a Luke figure with that outfit, to the best of my knowledge. Only that one. Yeah. Well, of course they had the one from Return of the Jedi, and then they had one that was packaged with the speeder bike in the 90s, but you're right, they haven't done another one since. And so your best bet would be to take the 90s figure and swap the head with a Jedi Knight Luke. That would be the way to go for that one. Or you could always put the poncho onto your Jedi Knight figure. I suppose that's an option as well. But again, this is the progression, right? Because for the most part, you either had a figure with a helmet or you had a figure without the helmet. Nowadays, you have a helmet that you can add on to. So you can take the helmet off and display them without the helmet, or you can put the helmet on it. And you're back. Everything seems to be working.
Yes.
There
I
you go.
literally had to. Where am I?
We missed you.
Yeah. Did you have to reboot?
No, I did have to slide my computer out from the desk in order to properly get to the wire and sort it out.
Been there. I understand
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to be picking the camera up and moving it too extensively.
Yep.
Now that we've gone through all that, I've completely forgot what the even reason I even moved it to begin with.
We were talking anime, or we were starting to talk
yes.
anime.
Yeah, we started with anime. I think I might be able to move. I don't think I'll be able to move the camera all the way over. I might be able to. I'm pretty sure I.
Hey, I can see me on your monitor. Hi, me.
Oh. There you are.
Yep.
Oh, and there's my screen. Oh no, we're going Inception.
That is pretty weird. Yeah.
My screen. You're on my screen. On your screen. On my.
Infinite screens going. Yeah. Exactly. Oh, and you just froze.
Oh.
Looked like you were threatening me. You were showing me your fist.
Yeah. Okay. This is very awkward. I'm pretty sure I was able to get the camera over like further this way and actually show you over here before. I kind of don't want to risk it too much out of fear of the camera unplugging again and having to go through all that process again just to sort it out. Yeah, over here that you can't see that I'm gonna indicate and you're just gonna have to just go with it is my anime shelf. The top row has a bunch of books like Lord of the Rings and Narnia and a couple of other books there, and then the next two shelves down are just filled with anime.
Sure. Yeah. I think you already know the extent of my anime knowledge. It's some 70s shows, and that's pretty much it. Other than what you and Matchstick have kind of prompted me to do rewatches on and stuff like that. Yeah. But,
wait, has Boomer gone to you about an anime rewatch with Matchstick, or is it just Matchstick?
It's usually Matchstick, and it's first Boomer, and Boomer's like, Yeah, I'm up for it. I'm like, well, if he's up for it, I guess I got to do it. I just, I am. I'll be honest. I am kind of resistant to taking on new fandoms and whatnot, simply
Yeah.
because it can get costly. Between
Yeah.
toys and books and stuff like. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I gotta limit myself a little bit. That's kind of why, and I've said this when talking about just Star Wars toys. I'm a 3 3/4 guy, and
Yeah.
there was a thought in my mind back in the 70s I was going to get the 12-inch figures, and I'm glad I didn't. You get more bang for your buck when you have a smaller scale. And now, they're starting to get into these 6-inch with the black series. I won't do it. I'm not going to buy the same figure in another scale now.
Yeah.
There's so many more 3 3/4 inch figures from 76 on that I'm not going to start all over again with a whole nother toy line. And you
I
see
do
what
have
happens.
something anime like.
Sure.
Yes. Once again, does also kind of relate to what you're saying. Let's go with this one. Okay, so this is the Dragon Ball Z movies.
Yep.
All 13 of them plus the specials. I have the 3 newer films in a separate release because this came out earlier than they did. Essentially, this is a standard release. There is a
Yep.
Blu-ray version, and this is a weird thing that Funimation does because they're the company that dubbed the show and release it outside of Japan.
Right.
Obviously, we said it before. Funimation, very woke, very
Yeah.
terrible. They will literally alter the meaning of dubs. They do it more so with the minor dubs that people don't know about. They sneak
Yeah.
in woke shit into that. And I haven't spotted any woke nonsense snuck into like something like Dragon Ball, which is a bigger franchise. I think it's because Funimation knows they can't get away with that.
Sure.
But yeah, so one of the things that Funimation does that really irritates me. So this release of the movies, it's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with the quality of the movies. They're all exactly how they should be. And they don't do that with all of like Dragon Ball. The original Dragon Ball series and then the follow-up and then one of the follow-ups called GT. Those two DVD releases, perfectly fine, nothing wrong with them. They're the exact quality they should be. But the one series that everyone knows about and probably started with, even though it's not the first part of the series, is Dragon Ball Z. Now, I'm sure anime fans and Dragon Ball fans probably don't like the fact that I have these, because these are actually really infamously bad versions of the series,
Sure.
because they're terrible quality, and Funimation's method of cleaning up the footage was to use like some kind of AI thing that doesn't
Yeah.
work properly.
Yeah.
But they advertised, or not this set, but later sets, they would advertise the fact that, oh, it's the way the series is meant to be looked, and we're doing all this stuff to make sure it's perfect. And you're like, no, you're not. You're just re-releasing this crappy version again, but maybe modifying some bits here and there,
Yeah.
and then saying whatever bullcrap in the commercial you need to get it sold.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like-
No, I get that.
Not Hasbro. I don't know why I'm saying Hasbro. Yeah, Funimation. They just keep re-releasing this specific version of the series. This is the cheapest version. You can get it for like £15. This isn't all of it. There's like nine of these. I only have the 6 of them
Sure.
because they released a Blu-ray version of the series, which is literally just this but slightly modified, and in some cases worse, in other cases not as bad. It's
Yeah.
kind of hit or miss, honestly. And every other Blu-ray and DVD release is just just this series repackaged, and there are only like 2, maybe 3 sets of the Dragon Ball anime that are actually good. I think that's the Dragon Box, which is incredibly expensive, and you're never going to get that. It's not even at this point. It's not even worth it. It's been scalped to like £500, I think, and because it's like a really old set. I think the level set is another one, and yeah, but with the level sets, for some reason, Funimation, they released multiple different versions of the series around the same time, so they saturated the market with different versions of the same series.
Sure.
And then they released an actual good quality Blu-ray version of the series. But because everyone's like, oh, series coming out buy that. Wait, hold on, this is a piece of crap. Maybe this one's better. Nope, piece of crap. Well, this one. Oh, hey, this one's actually good. But then Funimation's like, well, no one bought the level sets. Everyone just went to all these other sets that were released around the same time. So we're not going to do any more of the actual good ones because no one bought them. But they don't actually look into why no one bought them.
Right.
They just sort of see, oh, no one bought this set. So
They
it must
learned the
mean no
wrong
one wants
lesson.
that set. So we're not going to release any more of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, but hey, this older set that's incredibly cheap and not exactly the best quality, everyone bought that. Not because of the quality. Everyone bought it because it's easy to get and it's not too expensive.
Right.
So Funimation is like, oh, that must mean everyone loves that set. Let's just re-release that set a bunch of different times in different formats.
Yeah. So one thing that I never really thought about until I just now heard you talking about Dragon Ball Z. I'm a little surprised you didn't pronounce it Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I have heard other like British people call it Dragon Ball Z rather than Z. I think it's more to do with the fact that growing up, I heard it as Z.
Gotcha.
Although I didn't watch this specific show when I was a kid, I do remember seeing a little bit of Dragon Ball when I was younger,
Sure.
which is kind of ironic because early Dragon Ball, it's very raunchy and very like not for children. That's
Very
that style of
Japanese, huh?
comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas Dragon
and-
Ball Z, actually, this isn't for kids either, but like this is easily censored.
Sure.
Whereas Dragon Ball, you have to really work around that one to make sure it's acceptable for kids.
Do you have any idea what the original title is? I mean, because I can't imagine Dragon Ball Z. The idea of a letter like that in a Japanese title doesn't immediately make intuitive sense to me.
Yeah, the title is Dragon Ball.
It was just Dragon
Because
Ball.
the manga itself, it was just called Dragon Ball the whole way through. There are versions of Dragon Ball, or the Z portion of it, that is actually titled as Dragon Ball Z. But yeah, the Z was like an anime thing. The manga was just called Dragon Ball the whole way through.
Gotcha. Okay.
I can.
Wow.
I have the full 42 volumes. Obviously, these are 3-in-1 volumes. These aren't individual volumes.
Wow.
There's like 14 volumes, but there's like 3 individual volumes in each of them.
That's a lot.
That's actually really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 519 chapters. For you, chapters would be an individual comic book issue, would be the equivalent.
Sure. And Exact Change
I've
only
read that all the way through at least twice.
Exact
Very
Change
fun.
only says that the Z was supposed to have been the end, hence the last letter of the alphabet.
Yeah.
Sure, that makes sense, but
Yeah, and then
I
GT continues on from Z.
yeah.
Although G
Oh,
is an
Evelyn's
anime
even impressed by
GT is an
how
anime
many
exclusive
others there
thing.
are. And I know that for a while, Netter, you watched some Dragon Ball when it was first airing here in the States, didn't you?
Yeah. Well, I actually watched it with you.
Yeah.
And then we got
Just
to
didn't pay
one
much
certain
attention.
point in the story and it started getting really bizarro weird and we stopped.
Well, I think there was also a break at that point too, and I don't think we really went back to it.
Oh, I will point out that all the raunchy bits in the in early Dragon Ball, the anime kind of edits around them and censors them where it can. The manga does not censor it. You literally see everything that is in here is shown.
I've always been of the understanding that manga is not necessarily it's not a one-to-one relationship like comics over here. Comics are kind of thought of as being for kids, whereas manga is definitely more adult. Yeah.
Especially Akira Toriyama's manga. He has a very raunchy sense of humor.
Yeah. And Exact Change only is suggesting checking out Bleach. Good
I have some
anime
of the Bleach manga.
that just came back after a decade. Cool.
Oh yeah, because that ended a while ago. Yeah, the thing with manga is each chapter is made within a week. So you spend a week making the chapter, then it releases. You get like the weekend off, then it's right back to making coming up with the next chapter. making it, releasing it, weekend off, and it's just literally that pattern, just basically until the manga ends. And
Wow.
sometimes the manga never ends. Like for instance, One Piece, that's been going since like the late 90s. It's at like 1,000 chapters, and that's been going for like that's been going on a weekly schedule, like consistently the whole
Now,
way
see,
through.
something that's got that much volume, that is one area where I could kind of get behind someone saying, yeah, maybe that needs to be consumed in an electronic format. You know?
Yeah, I
mean,
only have because I have the One Piece manga. I don't have the full thing. That would literally take up multiple shelves. I only have like the first 9 volumes, like in the same 3-volume format that these Dragon Ball mangas are in.
that makes sense. So just like, so they just see it as a medium. Just like
Yeah.
if you were to go to a VHS place, you'd have your horror section, you'd have your,
Yeah.
adventure section, your cartoon section. In the back, you'd have the section that you got to be 18 or older to get into, stuff like
Yeah.
that. Manga, probably the same. Or manga, excuse me. I know
Yeah.
people get bent out of shape about that. It's
Yeah.
manga.
I'm not so much. I don't really care how you pronounce it. It's exactly the same with hentai and porn and that sort of stuff. In Japan, it's just another form of story for them. I mean, they do focus on the porn part of it, but like they do surround it with a story as well. I would pull out some of the mangas I have, but I don't want to show that on camera because I'm pretty sure YouTube won't allow that.
I dig it. Evelyn is saying, I have just one manga collection, 28 volume, Lone Wolf and Cub set. Do you know that one?
I know of Lone Wolf and Cub, but I've not seen the anime or read any of the manga.
Sure.
Yeah. There are some mangas that go on forever. Oh, here's one that you'll know.
Okay.
Moment.
He's got a lot of faith in me. We'll see if I do. Oh, Alita. Absolutely.
Yeah. This is the only volume of the manga I have. Funnily enough, the character Grishka, I think is how his name's pronounced. The big robot guy,
Right.
played by Jackie O. Haley in the film.
Yep.
There's actually a part in that's not in the film that is in the manga, where he's just absolutely massive and he's just picking people up and popping their heads open like cans and drinking their brains.
Oh. Yeah, probably best that they left that out of the movie.
I mean, I would have liked to seen Jackie O. Haley do that in the film. That would have been kind of entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah,
But,
I understand why it wasn't there, but I would have loved to have seen that.
So Exact Change Only says, I'm a huge weeb, so I could talk for days about it. So weeb is
actually that movie
anime
follows the manga
fan?
pretty closely for the most part.
That's what I heard. The term weeb means anime fan, am I right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
refers to anime fans. I think a while ago it used to be more of a derogatory term, but
Gotcha.
no, it's not so much that. Most weebs will just like refer to themselves as that, like in more of an endearing fashion rather than as a derogatory term.
Everyone says Lone Wolf and Cub was source material for Shogun Assassin Baby Cart movies. Okay. I mean,
Okay, your attempts to make it easier to understand actually made it more confusing. The original Lone Wolf and Cub makes it much clearer. That's mostly because I am an anime fan and I know about that to some extent.
yeah.
I don't know if that comment made it clearer for you to understand or not.
I'm guessing that they must have Shogun Assassin. Is that an like?
I have no idea what Shogun Assassin is or what the whole connection is there.
Okay.
This isn't what I was talking about, but there's some blood.
Yeah.
Although given it's black and white, you probably might not necessarily. You could assume it's oil because they're cyborgs.
True. That's true.
But, so I suppose in black and white, it's kind of more up for interpretation.
When I was talking with Brandon was it last week or the week before?
Yeah.
One of the things we were talking about is how what is considered acceptable in Japan may not be in the West, but the stuff that we're fine with, they might want to have censored. So
that's gruesome. You can see an eyeball there. Actually, you can see both eyeballs and the ears.
Which
Yeah,
is
some of this is
interesting
actually pretty gruesome.
because we tend to not, for whatever reason, here in the States, violence is generally okay, but
Yeah, you see a nipple? No, that's a
yeah,
no.
everyone flips out, exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas in the UK, yeah, it's after 9 o'clock.
Yeah, it's later in the day. That
You
means
know,
all the kids should be in bed
girls are like,
asleep.
okay, my boobs are afraid of the dark. Here they are,
Oh, Jenny Agatha.
like Jenny Agutter. Right, exactly. Oh, it's 9:30. Walkabout's coming on, isn't it? These are old man references, by the way.
Yeah, I know of that film. The only Jamie Ackler film that I know about is Logan's Run because I have that on DVD.
Logan's Run's a good one. American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, that's the other
Walkabout,
one.
of
That's another one
course.
I know about.
Yep. Absolutely. Exact Change only says, yeah, there's a divide between what our respective cultures finds acceptable. Yeah, and it's a bit of a surprise,
Yeah.
but it's also very interesting when you start looking at it and you find out
And also
why.
in Japan, they sometimes tend to have things be a little like it's weird. They tend to have things sometimes a little goofy, but not so goofy that it's. Well, sometimes it is so goofy that it's.
Alexa, shut up.
Yeah, you have like Japan has this kind of tonal mix where they go serious and silly,
Yeah.
and they don't always go completely one way. Well, sometimes they go completely one way or the other, but most of the time they go in between. Like this scene right here, Gorishka, This is a thing that he can do. I don't think he does this in the movie. But he just his head just comes off and all his spine as well out of his body.
Right.
That's kind of a goofy image, and I don't think that was in the film at all. Although he's still threatening in this, even though there are some goofy moments with him.
Yeah. I do really wish that they would get around to giving us an Alita sequel, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah,
I see
think
Cameron
the movie
wasting
adapted
his.
I think the movie adapted or some of the first 3 volumes of the manga,
Yeah.
but left multiple bits out and changed a few details here and there.
Well, I'm guessing they wanted to streamline, and they definitely left it open for the next chapter. But he's so busy with his blue cat aliens that we're not gonna get Alita anytime soon if it ever happens.
Yeah. Okay, for some reason I'm not finding the image of Gorishka popping people's heads open like a soda can. I will instead just show you this image of him with like a person's head in his mouth.
Yeah.
See how much bigger he is.
Kind of reminds me of the famous painting of Kronos eating his children.
Yeah, I can see the comparison. So I know sometimes with anime they like to draw on other cultural related stuff. Most of the time it tends to be Greek myth that they'll draw from.
Yep.
And British culture.
Because
for some reason we have a connection to Japan.
Well, good.
Probably because of William Adams now I think about it.
Yeah, and this was something that I was getting to with. It's very interesting to look into why certain things that we normally don't have a problem with in the U.S. in Japan they have cultural taboos for, and it has to do with a lot of how Western culture kind of came to Japan and how they viewed it and what they considered to be modern and desirable.
I've just noticed something. On my screen, you can see anime boobs on my wall.
Oh, cool. Well, there you go.
That poster right there. It's too far away for you to actually make out any of the details, but there are visible boobs on that poster.
Well, there you go. We got there it is. Absolutely.
If you can make that out, you can kind of get the implication of boobs there, but it's not close enough.
There's the suggestion of nudity.
Yeah. I mean, all I have to do is walk over there and I'll actually see them properly.
Well, but you could do that at any time.
Yeah, and any time I want.
Just wanted to share. That's always
good.
All right.
That's just been sitting there in the background of the shop for like the whole time. The whole time we've been streaming.
There you go.
Well, it's
I have
not
no
just
idea if
a
anyone
children's
noticed
show, so I
that.
wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, I do start out with the red band opening, so it's very clear
And
this is not.
yeah, it's also far enough away you can't really make out the. You can only make out an implication of boobs. You can't really see anything.
If
But-
you squint and you close one eye and you wish really hard, there's a nipple. Anyway, I know, right?
Weirdo, true.
I am a weirdo. I absolutely am. So I think we're about hitting that point. We're coming to the end of the show. Start winding down.
We didn't get to talk about any video games.
Yeah, we'll probably save that for another night when we get Aged Boomer back, I think.
Yeah.
And exaggeration. Show me the booba. Show me the booba. I get it, man. I get it.
I mean, I can grab one of the chapters of Dragon Ball and pull out like a page that I know has visible boobs on it, but I don't think YouTube will allow that, considering it'll be
Probably
closer
not a
and more
good
detailed.
idea. That's the kind of stuff to share on a separate simulcast. We'll save that for another night. Anyway, so
Or I
do
could
you
grab
have
one of the hentai
anything?
mangas I have up there. That's a more direct route.
Do you have anything big coming up in the very near future that you might want to share about or talk about? Any shows you got planned?
Well, I do have some videos that I am planning on releasing related to Transformers, specifically Beast Wars, because me, Wolfie, and possibly some of the other people in like that whole area of the community, some of the regulars at Wolfie's streams. I don't know who exactly, but maybe one or two of them will be joining us. We'll be talking about Beast Wars, and we'll go through the 3 seasons, kind of like what we did with Ben 10.
Right.
And what I will do, this isn't something that like me and Wolfie planned. It's more of just something that's like, oh hey, I'll do this as like a side companion piece to that, and I'll just like talk about some of the early Collectors Club stories that are set within Beast Wars and take place around that series and tie into that in different ways, just as a companion piece to those streams that we're going to do.
Yep. Okay, well, good. So, like I always say, please subscribe to the guest behind the bar tonight. His links are in the description below, and hit that notification bell, and you'll see the next time he goes live. And check out some of his older videos because I'm in some of them.
Me too.
Yeah, Netter too. And so tomorrow night, speaking of Netter, what are we going to be doing tomorrow night, Netter? Besides trying to take over the world.
We are going to be watching Buffy the Musical, Once More with Feeling.
Yep, that'll be on your channel tomorrow night, 9 Central, 10 Eastern. And I will provide the Cosme link for those of you who don't happen to have Season 6 of Buffy the Vampire Slayer on DVD.
I have a single disc from Season 6.
Yes, there was a promotional disc of
Oh, that's not how I have it, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I bought a copy of Beast Machine Season 2, and a single disc from the Buffy Season 6 box set was just sandwiched in the middle of them for no particular reason.
That's interesting.
Disc itself is very scratched, so I don't know if it works. I haven't tried it.
Yeah, it might have been one of those things they didn't realize it was even in there. But, we do have, the entire series of Buffy the Vampire Slayer on DVD, but we also got the promotional DVD of just Once More with Feeling.
I didn't even know that release is a separate thing.
It was a separate release. I think it was only sent out as screeners to people that worked at video stores or owned video stores and stuff like that. So that's how I
know
got
about
it.
Season 6 and 7 of Buffy, but I've only actually watched up to Season 5.
And Evelyn is thanking you for all of your insights on toys and anime and whatnot. That is an area of her interest. So that's tomorrow night. Once More with Feeling. I think a great rewatch, just perfectly timed for the Halloween season. And then we are crossing our fingers that Sunday we'll be over on Aged Boomer's channel for Geeky Geezers, maybe get back into a little normalcy again for him. But if not, it'll be here. One way or another, Geeky Geezers will be happening. I don't know exactly what's happening on his channel, but I know that Monday night is usually Soundtracks with Birdman's Batman show. So Monday evening, you might want to check him out. Also, Wednesday night, he will have some sort of a rewatch, possibly with Aged Boomer. If he's able to make it Sunday, maybe he'll be able to make it Wednesday. We will see. And then that brings us around to next Friday, where my special guest behind the bar will be Geek Talk. And I think you'll want to tune in for that one, Matthew, because he does a lot of streaming and gaming, and it's a good channel, and you might want to follow him.
Yep.
He actually does a lot of stuff on Twitch too, but you know, I follow a lot of people on Twitch, but I don't actually watch anything on Twitch. Most of what I watch here on YouTube.
I know. I hear Twitch, and I just picture a bunch of people, just twitching.
And yeah, apparently after their recent convention accident, there's going to be some pretty big lawsuits coming out of that. So I don't know how long Twitch is going to be around if they don't get their stuff together. But
I hear their community guidelines are kind of loose for interpretation.
Oh yeah, but that's old
situations.
News. They put together a like American Gladiator type of exhibition at their recent convention, and it wasn't the safest stunt situation, and one of the guests got hurt pretty bad. So there's going to be a lawsuit coming out of that, I think. It'll be interesting to watch that. Anyway, that's the show for tonight. Any last words, Matthew?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Netter?
Well, you know what I always say. We can talk amongst ourselves, and that's all well and good and a lot of fun. But it's so much more fun when you guys are with us. You're dropping your comments, your questions, your trivia, and just really being there with us. Because you're not just friends for us, you're family too. Thank you for joining us.
Yep, it was great hanging out with you guys on a Friday night. I always love starting out my weekend with you guys. You guys are always a lot of fun. Thanks so much just for all the support and all the encouragement that you guys give me, even during the week when you drop comments on the videos. It really does keep me wanting to keep doing this. So thanks everyone. Take care. We'll talk to you later.
Good night, ladies.
Good night, sir.
Hit it, sweetheart.